assuming that we just ignore all the golf cart names, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, right now. Yeah. Well, traditionally, this is our busiest weekend. This is President's weekend, so as long as it gets cold, it'll be.
I saw one name, but I may sign in if you want me to.
It was getting in the shinies tonight, so I tried.
Was there anyone else who wanted to sign in?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got cracked up the other night.
I did. I think I was the only sober person in the beer.
I thought you were. And I was pretty sober too. I worked all day. I worked and I had a cocktail. But I tried to stay. I had to leave early Sunday morning for a meeting.
My sisters and I are on the dry January challenge.
Are you?
The three of us. And what's today? 14 days on. Jennifer, she started off by drinking a Dewey and alcohol-free wine. She fell off the wagon 2 days into it. She was like, fun. So now it's me and my sister Marie. And Marie's as stubborn as I am. So we'll see.
We're all set? Ready to go? Turn off your phones, please. Because if you don't, and if it goes off while we're talking, you'll have to come up and sing the national anthem. So make sure your phone is off. All right. Where do we start?
I'm gonna call you and I'm gonna call you.
Yeah, but I'm always on
See your
time.
phone.
Straight off. Okay. A motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a
Did we do
motion.
the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'll second.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet.
Second.
We go in order. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Cyclone, you're going to do the whatever?
Yes, sir, I would be honored. Good afternoon, everyone. Our scripture verse for today is from the book of Isaiah. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Welcome to first council meeting of the new year and the new decade, 2020. That sounds more like we wish our eyesight wasn't a date, doesn't it? I can't get used to it. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years since we entered this millennium, and I look around, I see I'm not the only one that remembers that. There are a few. But we remember how concerned everyone was that at midnight on December 31st, 1999, everything was going to crash. Computers are going to go belly up. Experts were telling us that the world was pretty much going to end. We couldn't drive our cars. We couldn't get any money out of the ATM. We couldn't pump gas. And a lot of people came out as survivalists. You know, they brought a lot of food and guns and ammo and all that with them. Turned out the next morning, the sun still came up and God was still on his throne and he was still in charge. And I learned not long after that he even used bad expectations to bring out the best in people. I had a friend who was a summer resident, and I'm not going to mention his name, some of you will know him. And he was kind of a cross between being ornery and cantankerous, maybe a little of both. He was not a benevolent person. But in April, he came back from Florida with a summer residence. He came by my house, and he told me, he said, I'm one of those guys that thought disaster was coming. I bought around $20,000 worth of food and survival supplies. And he had them stored at his home here on Beech Mountain, and he was in Florida. Now, I'm still trying to figure out, how he's going to get to them. But he came by and asked me, he said, some organization that I could donate this to. I don't have room for all this in my house. So I told him about an organization I knew of for battered women over in Avery County, and that they would just take any kind of supplies or money, anything anybody would give them. So he said, okay, I'll take them over. His pickup truck was loaded. So I offered to go with him and help him. And he made it clear, I don't want your help, nor do I need your help. About 6 hours later, I guess, he came by my house, and he had tears in his eyes. And he thanked me for giving him the opportunity. He'd unloaded his pickup at this place. He was so touched by these women and what he heard they had been through that he said after he got his pickup unloaded, he took out his wallet and he handed him every dollar he had. And the lady in charge refused to accept it. But he forced it on her. And he told her, and these were his very words. He said, woman, the Bible says it is more blessed to give than to receive, and you ain't going to deprive me of a blessing. So I always think about this as a perfect example of the way God can use his mighty power to soften the heart, even of a grumpy old man, and using them to help some of his needy children. So would you bow your head, please? Lord, we ask your blessing on our community. We thank you for our military, our law enforcement, our EMTs and firefighters. We pray that you bless Donald, our president, Roy, our governor, Barry, our mayor, Bob, our town manager, and all of our town council. And we ask that you grant all wisdom to them to govern. And may you continue to bless the United States of America and Beech Mountain. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Pledge of allegiance. All at once.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we have some plaques to give out to our previous council members. We have Carl and Wendell. Renee is unavailable today, so we'll deliver hers personally. Wendell, if you want to come and accept your plaque. Wendell was on the, also on the Board of Adjustments. He was in town council since, what, for 4 years?
Yeah.
You want to take a picture?
Click. Whoop. There you go.
Because
Going out here or what?
I need to be on camera.
Do you want
Why?
to come to the middle?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You may not have done
You gotta
that.
get up there. It's part of the mayoral duties. You gotta stand right up there with what, you gotta do that.
You may not have done
I'll take one more just to be safe. All right, good job.
There you are, sir. And we have Carl, who's also in the TDA and also a council member. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Public comments. We have one person, Sandy.
Hi, Sandy Carr, 505 Pine Ridge Road. It's not so much a comment as an observation and an opportunity that I believe we have coming before us. For many of us, and I think everybody in here has been around for a while, the history of our town is very, very unique. And actually, our town started, it was incorporated in 81 out of a 1975 bankruptcy. And the entire town was a development, and they had horse stables, they had golf, they had swimming pools, they had the resort, they had everything. And it was a dream of several people to build this year-round wonderful resort, and they did it. They started it up. Unfortunately, it ran into problems, and they did the bankruptcies, and I think it was the longest bankruptcy in the history of North Carolina. It went from 1975 to, I believe, 81, when the town actually became incorporated. So, on the good side of that, these people back in 81, they came together and they did something really unique. They took a look at a big problem, and they went about it and they solved it, what I would say, very creatively. And it was a group of people. They didn't care what their titles were. They didn't care what they did. They pulled together and they saved this town. And I think we have a great opportunity coming up to us, and I'm kind of giving everybody a heads up on it, because you all know I like to plan ahead. We've got 81, so in 21, we're going to be on our 40th anniversary. And I think that's remarkable for this town, especially for all of the things that we've gone through. So I would like to challenge everybody to put their thinking caps on. We used to have a wonderful event. It was the Beech Mountain birthday party, and it used to happen May 1st. And we combined not only the town's birthday, we combined Arbor Day, so we could have our tree designation as a Tree City USA. And then we also did something really wonderful for the vets, which I really think is missing, is we recognized all the vets and their years of service. And it also was a wonderful opportunity for club members, resort people, community people, new people, whoever, to come together and have a cover dish. And it was a simple event. It was a birthday party, and it was held down at Buckeye. Unfortunately, the event got canceled, but it was canceled with the caveat of that if a milestone came up, that we could perhaps bring the event back. And I'm thinking, what better milestone than us celebrating our 40th birthday? So we have a year and a half, guys. And I was hoping that maybe a task force could be put together. I know Urs did all of the veteran stuff. And maybe we have some other community-minded people out there that would like us to celebrate. I want to also say that this is a media bonanza for us to be doing an entire year of celebrating Beech Mountain for 40-year celebration. We've got some already ideas for a digital campaign, having people send in their stories to us. Well, what's going to happen if we select one story, and we select one story each week? Those people that are selected, they're going to send out to all of their friends. So it's going to be a real free marketing bonanza for us to go ahead and highlight what this town is. And this town isn't potholes, it isn't beautiful lights, it's not just the resort, it's not just the club. It's these families that are coming up here and having these experiences, and that's why they're coming back. So I think it's a really great opportunity for us to go ahead and say happy birthday to everybody. And I don't know where this project's going to go. I don't know whether it'll do recreation, or we'll go over to the chamber, or whether it'll just be led by the community. But I think it's a great opportunity. I think we all should kind of embrace it.
Sure, all the Floridians come to retire. Is that why you're here, Frank?
That's why I'm here.
All right. Do we have an approval for the consent agenda?
I make a motion.
Second.
You all agree? All in
Aye.
favor? All right. New business. We have the board and committees appointments that we have to pick from. We'll start with Kelly. You want to start for the recreation?
Yes, as outgoing member of the Parks and Recreation Committee, I would like to nominate Mike Holland to take my space on the committee.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Mike, you are now on the committee. Erijn?
I would like to nominate for the tree committee Greg Jackson to be on the committee.
We have a second? I second. Ready to vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Minor? Minor?
Sir?
You have vote?
Yes.
5-0. Craig is now appointed to the tree committee. We have now the TDA.
So with the TDA as an outgoing chairperson, I would like to see or nominate Sandy Carr for the chair position and have Calder Smoot remain as vice chair.
Second that.
A second.
We have a second?
Second.
Vote?
Aye.
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 Minor?
Yes, sir.
Erijn?
Aye.
Jimmy, yes.
Yeah.
Barry, no. 4-1 when Sandy becomes chair. All right, now we got to reappoint, we have the planning board. Mr. Wyder?
Like to reappoint Pete Chamberlain for the planning board.
Motion?
Second.
All vote?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Pete is back on the board. Next,
I think that's it on committees.
for the committee. Wyder?
No, we got one more. Like to nominate Larry Tyner for the Board of
Planning board.
Planning Board. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Larry's on the board. Okay, now we have the Board of Adjustments for reappointment. Ron Nichols. Got a second?
Right here.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Board of Adjustments alternate, Sarah Walsh. Got a motion?
Here.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. I believe that's everybody. The tree board. Yeah, with the tree board. Jane Miller, reappointment. Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we have one more on the TDA, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
And that would be Mandy Taylor. She would like to renew her term.
Okay, Mandy,
Second.
Second.
all in favor?
Absolutely.
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Yes, sir.
Mandy, you're back on the board. Congratulations.
Very good.
That should cover everybody, I believe. So I'm glad we had quite a bit of application, which is great, because a lot of times we're scrambling to find people to get on the board, so I'm glad to see we had a lot of the citizens sign up. In fact, I got a phone call today from a gentleman who wanted to get on the board, and it was just too late, but I told him we'd like to keep his name, and he was very excited about getting on the board. So that's great. I'm glad to see that the residents are really supporting these boards. I appreciate it. I believe. Old business, Shane Park. Bob?
Mayor, good afternoon, council. Update on Shane Park. We've got a progress meeting scheduled for 9 o'clock on January 22nd here at Town Hall. We're expecting the designer, the engineer, and the architect, as well as the contractor, to be here at the meeting, present the revised drawings for the combined bathroom facilities and pump enclosure. We should have some numbers to, at least some preliminary numbers, so we can start discussing that with the group. We need to get moving on that and turn some dirt down there. So the 22nd, 9 o'clock here. The critical path timeline is being drafted based on that meeting on the 22nd. I don't have that ready for review. We should have it ready for the 22nd. We'll provide it to the committee so that they'll have a better understanding on how we're going forward, what the critical path is to get everything done. The well piping, the supplies are on site. We're waiting on some fittings. Public Works is going to go down as soon as they get some good weather and dig the trench, put the pipe in, and that will complete the well discharge to the correct place in the lake. We talked about that last month, and then that'll be done. And then as we construct the bathroom facility with the pump enclosure, we'll enclose that pump, obviously, lock it up, and it'll be secured, and that part of the project will be complete. We've revised the financial report. Steve Smith and I have been going through expenditures over the past 2 years on Cheyne Park. We found another $1,000, and I promised to show every expenditure that we could attach to Cheyne Park, so that revised financial statement will be provided to the committee on the 22nd.
Okay, great.
Can I ask one quick question? That 22nd January meeting, is that open to the public, or is that not?
Oh, it's open, sure.
Okay.
It's not an advertised
So if
meeting.
citizens would like to attend it, they can
Absolutely.
attend it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
22nd, 9 o'clock here, the Cheyne Park. We'll have staff here. We'll have the design folks, and we'll begin moving forward, getting that critical timeline path in place.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, you're back up. Town manager of the staff report. Was it Daniel?
All right, I've got a few things. I want to start off, ask Daniel Davis, he's in charge of our utility, to come up and give you a briefing on the new lake permit that went into effect January 1st, and he'll be available for any questions. The purpose of this briefing is just to get you up to speed on what we were talking about last month. Daniel, thank you.
Council, as you know, we've recently had, as of January 1st of 2020, we are now under another discharge permit for the amount of water that we have to discharge downstream from Buckeye Lake. Y'all know that, the lake is town property, it's town grounds, and it's town controlled, but the water itself is, of course, regulated by the state of North Carolina. So we are told how we can use and safely use this water for our citizens and for the environment downstream, as well as for the lake. In the past, we have predominantly been governed by what we call the Water Shortage Response Plan. And what we simply do is we measure levels in the lake. Most of the time, water flows through the lake, it flows over the dam, and everything is just fine. But at certain drought periods through the year, the lake does begin to drop. We've had some wet years in recent years and have had very little trouble with that. But this permit is going to put some extra measurement on our lake and on the discharge. This will be measured by stream gauges. We have one that's mounted below the dam, one that's mounted above the dam. And they simply do the math calculations to figure out what comes in versus what goes out. And this permit reflects what must be discharged based on 2 seasons. The seasons that we have and have been given are January 1st through April 5th, where our minimum release is 2.53 CFS, which is 40% of our mean annual flow. And then the second period is the April 16th to December 31st period, which it's the drier season, so they give us a little bit of a break on our release, and that release is set at 1.26 CFS. Just to clarify on that a little bit, 2.53 CFS is about 1.6 million gallons a day of water, and the 1.26 is about 814 million gallons a day. CFS, gallons, units, it gets a little confusing. The point being is that what goes through that downstream gauge is measured, it's reported, and it's going to be very closely watched. As a part of this permit, we will be submitting to the state quarterly flow reports to show what our flows are through the entire period based on a daily basis. So what this means for us is that we must meet these release requirements in order to stay in compliance with the state's permit. As we approach drought seasons and drought time, if our water levels begin to drop, the requirements of this permit will, I believe, be in question this coming year for our ability to meet those. That's my main purpose here today, is to explain to you that the permit is here, it is now in place, and not only that, but that I fear that we will have difficulty in our dry times maintaining this permit. We have seen it in the past that as we get drier for a couple of periods in late July and August, we have very little flow that overflows the spillway. While we are meeting this permit based on the downstream flow gauge, that's going to tax our water supply. Our average daily flow for 2019 was about 430 million gallons a day, 430,000 gallons per day. That was about our average usage, but we maxed this year. Our single highest day was about 770,000 gallons. So in the dry periods, it's going to tax us. Regardless of these, we have now a response requirement based on the downstream flow gauge, which is on a trigger set. The trigger set is the number of feet that we drop below the spillway. We've always had this as a part of our water shortage response plan. We have not had the release requirement attached to it. It is good to know that especially in this second season, that this drier season, as we progress down the trigger set, there are some reliefs granted to us within this. If we were to reach a tier 2 reduction, it drops from 1.26 to 0.95. If we continue down the chain and continue to lose water, the permit grants us further to be able to match inflow with outflow. So they have been forgiving. This is an improvement from what was in the past, but just because of the measurement methods and the stringent nature of this permit, I believe we will have trouble this year. I felt, and I've asked Bob and he's allowed me to speak, I felt that the sooner we know this is coming, the better that we can be. Again, understand, as I've said before, that it depends on the rain. We have a nice wet summer and we may squeak through. If we don't, we will have periods of days or weeks where we have restrictions being placed on water usage from our water supply, and that relates through our ordinance process to us asking for the community to use less water, asking us to use again less water, and then at the same time, if you're not using less water, then rates increase for your usage. So our intent is to achieve water conservation and to continue to maintain the structure of our system and our lake. So, that's an overview of what this permit means for us. The permit is 6 pages long. It's a whole lot of lists of, at this feet, you do this, at this foot, you do that. It furthermore requires that we continue, of course, to keep up to date our underflow gate works that were recently installed. It also requires that we continue to take all reasonable steps towards future alternative water supply in accordance with the recommendations by the Division of Water Quality section, Water Planning section. That is what I have on our permit. Do you have any questions?
I have a quick question. If we violate this permit, what happens? Whether, I mean, we could,
The state's
or we may end
intention-
up in a position
right.
where we have to violate
The
this.
state's intention is to work with us. This is, it is to protect the environment as well as the interests of the town. When you violate a permit, you generally get not so kind words in the mail and show us your plans type of speak. But the truth is anytime that you violate a permit, we will receive a notice of violation. And in the state of North Carolina, any notice of violation can carry monetary penalty.
That was my question.
Yes.
Would be penalized.
It can also be depending on, and this is their choice, there's many ways that they can do things, but it can be daily penalties for failure to remain in compliance with the permit. And again, with the stream gauges measuring daily, they have daily data so that they can do what they choose.
You know, the problem I see with this is that if restrictions are put on our water supply, then this is going to prohibit growth. And then folks that want to come up to Beech Mountain, possibly build a home, that, you know, it's going to deter them. So there's the release, the discharge permit that's downstream. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask anyhow. Are there any release requirements upstream from Beech Mountain that feed into any streams that we would get water from them if Beech Mountain has to release water?
No.
So there are no
No,
resources?
the only stream that feeds Buckeye Lake is the Buckeye Creek that comes down.
So the short-term fix would be to conserve water?
Yes, by all means, anytime. Beech Mountain always stays logged with the state and in our attitude that we have voluntary water reductions, which simply means that we as a town are cognizant of the need for conservation. That's our operating mode. And, you know, we have always seen that to be so. So that's really where we stand right now. On paper, our WSRP lists that voluntary mode is a intention to reduce water use by 5% from what you would consider normal. So pretty much anytime you brush your teeth or anytime you're doing your laundry, if you pay attention, you can easily reduce your individual water by 5% a month, 5% a week, 5% a day. And those numbers grow, and especially in the drought periods, that makes a huge difference to our water supply.
So how do you plan to reach out to the residents and visitors rather than, when the town does get in a pinch, being proactive and educating them that this is a situation that we're heading into, and being proactive and start conserving now rather than waiting till, you know, we get below that point or get to that point?
Well, I mean, our full intention should be, now, and I don't get to dictate this, but at the same time, we need to make everyone aware that we do have water concerns on Beech Mountain. Please be safe. We have Facebook outlets, we have email outlets, all of those for proactivity, and we can always ask any of the town businesses and rentals to promote a conservation attitude. With that said, those are all, you know, kind of preemptive strikes. As we read these gauges each day, we will begin to see when these things start to decline, lengthy periods of drought forecasted, those type of things. At that point, on the staff level, we will begin to contact the state. I want to be very loud with the state and the understanding that we believe that we are going to have a problem very soon. We're not seeing the rainfall, we're not seeing the flow. I want to impress upon them our need for help in our situation at the state level. And then, of course, the second that we go into our trigger set, it triggers the permit required regulations. Once we get into our stage 2, that actually goes as far as public notifications, newspaper, radio announcements, and the further expectation that the utility begins to monitor water usage throughout the town to ensure that all the residents are doing their conservation.
Two more quick questions. Is the long-term fix the Watauga intake project?
That's an opinion question, and I'm going to tell you yes. My opinion is that is the only long-term viable solution to our water concerns. We
Okay.
do have short-term options, but I hope you give me the opportunity to say to you many times, we need direction, and the direction needs to be Watauga, or the raw intake on Watauga River.
Last question. Can you dredge out any of the ponds?
We have
Lakes or
actually,
ponds
we actually
for
recently
further
had
capacity?
some engineering work looking at that. It's not feasible. And the problem is more volume in the lake does not mean more flow coming into the lake. We might buy a day by having more volume at a large expense. Regardless, what comes in to fill that space is going to be the same.
Thank you.
One last question. Is there any way to appeal the numbers on this or grandfather Beech Mountain in or?
We've been through appeals.
Okay.
To be quite honest with you, we've worked with this permit for 2 years, going backwards and forth. We have arrived at what we believe to be a much better place than we once were, while at the same time they have held firm in their ground. It has been appealed multiple times. We do have, also, we have 2 environmental engineering agencies that have been working on our behalf, again, to benefit the town at the greatest level possible. This is the culmination of that. This is as far as the state would go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel, I have 2 questions. When looking at the response plan and the permit, this might be common sense, but stage 1 goes with tier 1, stage 2.
Yes,
tier
yes,
2.
yeah, that's right. They tailored our release to our existing WSRP plan, which is the 4 feet, 6.5 feet, 13.5 feet, and 23.
And then when we say violate the permit, when do we, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, when do we know when to do that?
That's based on those elevations. In practice, what's going to happen is I'm going to look at the dam and I'm going to see dry concrete or I'm going to see water overflowing.
Yeah.
And literally the day that I begin to see the level drop, we start going out and we check in with the measuring tape until we see 4 feet. At 4 feet, we trigger tier 1.
Okay.
At 6.5 feet on the measuring stick, we trigger the next one. And to be quite honest with you, with our small stream and our flow, when we hit 4 feet or 6.5 feet, we're going to hit very much less than that in a matter of days. It's a very quick thing. We've got a large town on a small body of water.
Second question, in hindsight, is this going to help us with the state, with Watauga County?
If we violate our permit and we have done all due diligence,
Exactly.
then I can only expect that it would help our position that we need furtherance of our raw water intake.
Yes, sir.
In the same time, any time that you violate a state permit, it's not a good thing. We're going to take our lumps, but at the same time, that's what I want to be very forward with the state in the understanding that we're doing everything that we can. I want to be able to tell them that ethically and honestly, that we are moving forward full speed, we're doing all that we can, and we still have to preserve and maintain our distribution system.
Yes, sir.
Just for the record, the state knows that we need water.
They're very well aware.
They're very much aware. Our problem is that we've got to get the state to push Watauga to give us the approval. It's Watauga that's holding us up, not the state.
We need to get everyone on board pushing Watauga.
Right. And so, a couple of years ago, we had a meeting, they had about 350 people. And they were afraid that the fish were going to need the wheels to get around, that we were going to drain their lake. And so there was a big hullabaloo about that. And then 2 years ago, we met with them, and they're not, unless they're going to be pushed by the state, they're not going to really be anxious. We're allowed by the state to take 20% of water. we're estimating to do 16%. And so we're not gonna take anything, you know, that's gonna harm the lake. It's just that the environments, people start getting out there, and that's why Watauga doesn't wanna touch it. Once we start getting some fines and stuff like that, we can go back to the state and say, look, we're doing everything we can. This is what's happening, we need your help. And that's when the state is gonna have to step up, because we have a letter on record that states that they understand that we need water. It's just they're not at this point, willing to enforce it. So this might hurt us, but help us on the other side.
If you'll indulge me, the fact that if we also remember that as long as we are prepared as a town to move when those moments come, you know, if we have dotted our I's and crossed our T's and we're ready, we are in good shape. If we're not ready, if there are more things that we should have done or could have done and we haven't, that hurts us. So, you know, it's a mindset that we need to reach.
So if we,
Well, the documentation that we'll obviously be getting more of with this system in place will definitely help us with the state. It's a good thing and it's not a good thing.
Right.
Because the good thing would be that it would put more pressure on the state to maybe pursue Watauga and say,
Exactly.
we need to assist Beech Mountain. Because they've clearly done everything that they can. They're doing their due diligence and they're being proactive. And they have the documentation to back it up. The not so good thing is that we're violating it.
I don't know if anybody's walked in Boone lately, or in the last 3 months. There's signs on their windows. Yeah, you can't see, but it says, I love Watauga River, Beech Mountain water grabbed. I vote and pay for taxes. That's what the residents of Watauga and Boone have on their windows downtown in Boone. So this is what we're fighting against. So that's why we're going to need the state to really help us on this. So I think we're taking the right action. It's going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of pain, but then I think we can move forward with it.
For my closing, and I'll finish, again, I just want to reiterate, we need to attempt to meet our permit. We need to conserve water as much as possible so that, of course, everybody stays concerned, be conservative. But when we send out the call, we need you to be more conservative. Please comply. That's a very important piece of this. You know, do what you can to save the water.
Daniel, if it becomes an emergency situation, depending on what that level is, can the state not mandate to Watauga County that they have to comply? Or is that a slippery slope?
I'll be
Stay
honest
away
with you,
from
that those decisions at the state level, you know, what they're willing to do, I really can't speak to.
Before you have an opinion?
Yes, sir. I've looked into this issue, and there was some discussion when the county voted against changing the watershed. By way of background on this, the reason why you need the county's approval is the Department of Environmental Quality determines the watersheds but outsources those to the counties to administer. We need Watauga County to reclassify the Watauga River watershed from a watershed 2 to a watershed 2 supply designation, which actually requires larger stream setbacks and in practical effect protects the water that flows into the Watauga River more. But in order for us to get approval, the next step is to have that reclassified. The council did go before the commissioners, as Mayor Kaufman said, and the commissioners had a lot of, quite frankly, misinformation in front of them that caused them to deny that request, and they're not politically interested in getting involved in that again. The outsourcing of that is a state function. So the state ultimately has the ability to tell the county how to administer its watershed. The, I guess, problem that you run into right now is there's not the political will at the state level to tell the county we are going to take this back and we are going to change the watershed over your head. So the two options that you have are, one, you could reapproach the Watauga commissioners, or two, apply for lack of a better term, political pressure on those at the state level to be willing to essentially tell the county that they are going to make this classification change. once that classification change is done, then that makes the river eligible for a water intake. So I know that's a somewhat longer answer than you're probably looking for, but for lack of a better term, it's a political issue either at the county level or at the State Department of Environmental Quality.
Mayor, if I could interject, as you can tell, the issue of water for the town of Beech Mountain is a huge elephant in the room. It has been for a number of years, and it has reached the #1 priority on my desk. It is not something that we can discuss in a few minutes or in a council meeting. I would ask that the council consider a workshop the end of February. I would suggest the 25th in the afternoon, where I can bring in our design professionals. I can bring in our subject matter experts to give us a clear understanding of what the Watauga River intake options are, what the costs are, maybe how to finance those, but have a workshop that deals nothing other than the Watauga River water intake. And I would ask the council consider that so that we can move this ball forward.
If this is premature, we can hold off till we have that meeting. But from your experience in the fire service, does this elevate the issue with the state if we have a water shortage? You know, so if you look at it from a drinking standpoint versus from a health and safety, from a fire service standpoint, does it change the dynamics of it?
Yeah, I don't believe so. There's many rural communities in North Carolina that don't have the water supply that we do. Certainly from a fire chief's perspective, I'd like every fire hydrant to work and there'd be plenty of water, unlimited. But I don't think that the powers to be in the state take any consideration into fire protection when it comes to public water supply. Yeah.
Thank you.
One additional point that I think is worth the comparison, there were similar dire predictions when the town of Boone reclassified the New River for its water intake, and I believe by all accounts the change in water level at the New River is negligible and not noticeable, despite many of those same predictions that the county commissioners heard when Beech Mountain made a similar request. So that is an example of a successful water intake and how the effect on the river essentially is not damaging to the environment.
So for the state has the ability to initiate the county or Watauga for additional support to us, can they also change the classification as well?
Yes, and
Okay.
that is the critical issue.
Right.
Is a change of the watershed classification.
Correct.
And the state has the ability to make that change. It's just a matter of convincing them it's necessary to step on some local toes, for lack of a better term.
And Councilman, there are other options depending on the design of the intake and where we put the water. Currently, there's a 10-mile buffer on the Watauga River that we need the county to approve if we bring the water into the water plant. The original proposal years ago was to bring the water into the lake and let it spill over the spillway back into the river. That would not require the 10-mile buffer. The point I'm trying to make is there are so many moving pieces to this that we can't possibly address it tonight. I would like to make it a specific meeting where we can comprehensively look at the options available, and then we would ask the council to give us direction on which option you would like us to proceed in. Barring that, we keep spinning our wheels and throwing balls up in the air, and nothing seems to get done.
So what do we need to do to set up this meeting?
Is everybody agreeable to have a
Yes.
town hall meeting on the 25th of February?
Yeah, that's Tuesday.
Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Yes.
25th of
Yes.
February?
25th of February?
Tuesday, yep.
What time?
I can have the design folks here anytime in the
Thank
you,
afternoon. You pick.
Thank you, Danny.
25th.
25th at,
He'll let us know what time.
okay.
Does 2 o'clock sound all right to
Sounds
everybody?
perfect. Yep.
And we'll plan for a 2-hour meeting, 2 to 4?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item on my report is
Excuse me, just 1 second.
I'm sorry.
Do you want, we're gonna hold it down at Buckeye?
We can, sure.
Gives us more room
Okay.
for the public?
We'll get that notice out.
Okay, great, thank you.
The next item on my report is something new. It's called the Business Acknowledgement, and this came about from a need that was brought to my attention, where the local businesses on Beech Mountain, it's a difficult place to conduct business on a year-round basis, and we decided that using my time at this meeting to acknowledge a business every month, not to give them an award or a plaque or have pictures taken, but just simply to acknowledge a business that has made the commitment, the sacrifice to try to operate here on Beech Mountain. And hopefully by bringing it to the forefront, it will encourage patrons to go to that business, and it will also encourage that business to thrive. Everyone knows that without the business community on Beech Mountain, this town would not thrive. We could not operate without the business community, and the local businesses here are extremely important. There's a lot of risk and hard work that goes into operating a business here. And so today we've picked one, and it's one of our newer businesses, and I'd like to introduce Poppy's Coffee Shop. It's at 1103 Beech Mountain Parkway, and I'd like to introduce the owner, Taylor Reep, who's here today. Taylor, wave.
Why don't you come forward and give us something about your...
No, actually, when I asked her to come, she says, "Do I have to speak?" I said, "No, you don't."
Unfortunately, I did not bring any coffee. I drank it all. But yeah, it's located right next to the entrance to ski slope, as some of you know, like Carol, who has, I've heard, decided not to come on Mondays because I'm closed. But yeah, I have espresso drinks, frappuccinos, smoothies. So I do have non-coffee and coffee. Loose leaf teas. Just, I think everything. And I am open Tuesday through Sunday.
What are your hours?
7 to 4, Tuesday through Saturday, and then 7 to 1 on Sunday. I will be open MLK, so I'm open this coming Monday, 7 to 1 also. Mm-hmm. Can you have a coffee shop without Wi-Fi?
You have things to nibble on, like...
Yeah, I have all those pastries that you don't want to eat, but you eat them anyway.
Taylor, thank you for doing the fire department fundraiser.
You're welcome. Oh, that reminds me, I was supposed to bring you a check today.
Oh, that's right.
So I will give it to you next
All
Friday.
right. Well, thank you, Taylor.
Thank
very
you.
much. And each month, Mayor and Council will bring a business to the council meeting and introduce them to you and tell you a little bit about them. I've been meeting with the business community, and it's interesting to hear some of their stories and some of their trials and tribulations. My next item is something near and dear to me. If I could ask Captain Tim Holland to come up. Tim, I'm going to read this because I wrote it just for you. Captain Tim Holland we're going to give him his 45-year pin. Volunteering continuously with the Town of Beech Mountain Volunteer Fire Department. He joined on May 1st, 1975.
Must have been 2 years old.
He was 18, at least that's what the records show. Some notes, he's attended over 5,000 hours of training. He's responded to over 6,000 emergency calls, both fire and medical. And he's got some great stories to tell you if you've got a few minutes or an hour or two about falling through floors or falling on ice or things like that. But he's done it all. He has served as our fire chief. He's currently assigned as the fire department's medical director. I couldn't find anybody else that wanted to do it. So I said, Tim, you're it. No, he does a really good job at that. He currently serves as the vice president of our board of directors, and he has tested each and every fire hydrant in the town for the past 20 years. Congratulations. That is a big deal, let me tell you. It's a family affair. Tim's late father was a long-term member. He's one of our founders, Vern Holland. Tim's wife, Jan, and son, Michael, who's now on our Parks and Rec board, currently serve as active members. So we've got the entire family in there. And I'm not sure what the neighbors think when our tones and pagers go off in their house, but it's got to be loud. And the Holland family is a credit to the town of Beech Mountain, because that is really what it's all about. For 45 years, Tim and now his family have participated in our volunteer fire department. He runs one of the oldest local businesses, Holland Realty. And it gives me great pleasure, Tim, to present you with your 45-year pin, acknowledging 45 years of dedicated volunteer to the fire department, and certainly appreciate everything you've done. This is the 18th. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate Mayor and Council being able to do that at this meeting. It's really important to the fire department. I'll get into the nuances of my report. Under finance, we have a budget retreat, as you know, scheduled for the 23rd of this month. It'll be all day, and we're still receiving topics from the public. Cameron's putting those together, and we'll bring those to you. That'll be a facilitated retreat here, and at the end of the day, I hope we'll walk away with some good direction from council on where you want staff to develop the budget. Our audit's been completed and accepted by the LGC, and we'll have a presentation at the February meeting by the auditor, and he'll present that to you. That's February 11th. On Public Works, the Convenience Center, we've made some changes. We've put up some chain link fence and gates to better secure that area. We'll begin enforcing the existing solid waste ordinance on February 1st. Of note, that's going to eliminate the contractor construction debris to be accepted at the Convenience Center. It also will impact residents who do construction and bring it to the recycling center. So we'll work through that trials and tribulations. But the ordinance as it exists now does not provide for contractor debris. The building department has been instructed to make sure all contractors are fully aware of the change, and their signs posted or being posted on the gates at the recycling center. We're getting bids to put up a security camera there just so we can monitor the area a little bit better. And most of this is temporary until the new center is built, and the new recycling convenience center will not take contractor debris as well. Construction on the building, our loan is to close in February. We have all the paperwork together. We're waiting on the LGC to meet the beginning of February, and Steve Smith and I will make sure that closing goes forward. There's site work underway. If you go to the convenience center, you'll see a retention pond being dug out just behind the existing recycling center. We'll be putting in the sewer line next, replacing an existing sewer that's in the way, and we'll begin work as soon as the weather gets better. We, at the Public Works, we've put in you might see it driving around. Matthew came to me and he said, I've got a better idea to spread salt. Our expense per mile and per ton of salt was exceeding our expectations, and it was because we were using equipment that was too big. We were using our big, heavy snow plows to spread salt, and Skeeloff Road is a good example. It's a very narrow, twisting road, very difficult to get the big truck up there, get it turned around, and our maintenance on those trucks is extraordinary, to be honest with you. So Matthew was tasked to come up with a plan. He came up with a $5,000 stainless steel salt spreader that mounts in the back of an existing 1-ton vehicle. We tried it out on that snowstorm 2 Saturdays ago, and it worked very, very well. I think we'll be looking at adding those as we go forward in the budget. We can do more miles of salt safer. It's a smaller vehicle. It can be operated by more of our drivers. It's not required to have a CDL to operate it. It's more maneuverable. It works better in the parking areas and smaller roads that we have to traverse. And of course, if we get a heavy snow, we have to bring out the big trucks. But as long as we have these 1, 2, 3 inch snows, and more importantly, the ice, we'll be using that smaller spreader, and you should see that out on the road pretty soon. To that end, we've had some issues with 2 Saturdays ago. We had a snow ice storm where the parkway was closed. I sent council a post-analysis incident report on that, or post-incident analysis. To that end, we've met with DOT of Avery County. We've changed our procedures on how we notify them. They'll be here sooner. We've also agreed to share resources where we can fill their trucks with salt and sand as well as fuel, and then they return it after the storm, and so that we're made whole. That way we can keep the DOT truck on the mountain, and when it's empty, it was returning to Heaton to resupply, and that was an hour-and-a-half turnaround, and it was a waste of time. So we have that agreement with DOT, and the next event happened actually about 3 days after our meeting. We applied the new process, and it worked out really well, so we're happy with that.
They can go to Poppy's for coffee and Jimmie can feed them.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. The AMPS insurance issues, I just want to update you with that. I received some information of a resident, John Pendergast, who's an expert in the field. I've contacted him. He's agreed to help the town out, negotiate those outstanding balances, and he'll be meeting with me and the employees next week. So hopefully we'll be able to get that handled pretty quickly. On the manager search, we've developed an advertisement for council review. I haven't got it to you yet. I will, and we'll get that out on the street. The council has asked me to go out and solicit municipal town attorneys and bring you 3, 4 proposals, including the Eggers firm. We have that established. I've got that prepared. We'll get it out on the street probably the end of this week, beginning of next. And you should have a number of proposals to review and make a decision in the future. You've got some orange bags in front of you tied in blue ribbon from Beech Mountain. Let me tell you about that. We've met with staff, we've met with all the employees, and the bottom line is we've got a number of employees and a number of town vehicles that traverse the town on a daily basis. And so we've decided that every employee will have a garbage bag in their truck or their car, and if there's a piece of trash, you stop and pick it up. I should not see a piece of trash on the road for more than an hour or two because one of us should be driving by. I won't say that was well received when I put it out there, but I've been pushing it. And the first employee, believe it or not, and I don't know who it was, that was reported to me by a resident was a town police officer. So the next Monday morning staff meeting, I brought that to everyone's attention. And the next phone call was the police chief picking up trash. So if I can get the police chief and the police officers to pick up trash, I thought we're making progress. So the purpose of the bag is to give you a bag, and I encourage you and I encourage everybody, don't let a piece of trash lay on the side of the road. It's a small little thing, but today I picked up several beer bottles, beer cans, soda cans, and some plastic driving around town. It makes a difference. So hopefully you'll see a difference if you haven't already, and our employees are proud to work here. They're proud of Beech Mountain, and they're going to show it by helping us pick up trash. We contacted DOT at the county level concerning the repaving of Beech Mountain Parkway in Avery County. You know that Watauga DOT paved their portion, and the portion in Avery is in pretty sad shape. The state agrees, and although they don't, their excuse is we don't have a budget, and the governor hasn't approved our budget. They have the repaving of the parkway from Banner Elk to the Watauga line in the 2020 budget. And if it's to occur, it will be done in this spring-summer paving season. So although that was good news, they always qualify with, well, you know, if budget allows, and currently we don't have a budget. I told you about the business task force, and I think you got a report from the TDA. We're going to continue that. That's working very well. Met with some local businesses. We had lunch. We discussed generally what the business community would like to see in the town. I discussed generally what the town would like to see in the business community. And I think if we meet every couple months, we'll get some good ideas of different businesses and be able to bring that back together. I got good reviews from it, from the business people that were there, and hopefully it will grow. I've restructured some town hall offices for security and efficiency. Many of you have come through and seen the boxes and the things that are moved, and I'm sure I'm not the most loved town manager when I'm making people move offices, but I wanted to explain to you what we're doing. We had financial records, financial accounting, reconciliation of bank statements. We had cash, and we had checks in the front office on the counter. And I'm holding the employees there responsible and accountable for their data entry. And more than once, I noticed that they would be doing a bank reconciliation and going down the columns of numbers, putting them in, and the phone would ring or someone would walk in to pay a water bill or say hi. And I noticed the employee would put their finger on the screen or on where to hold their spot. And they would talk or take the payment and then have to go back to where their finger is. That's just not a good system of security and control. And it's unfair to the employee that I hold them responsible when I give them that type of place to work and they have to put their finger on what column of numbers they're on. So I've moved the finance officer down by the clerk and the manager, away from the front door. I've moved the tax and the accounts receivable clerk inside the glass doors where they can handle their reconciliation. And I haven't solved the front door issue yet. I'm going to work on that. I'll put someone there, they'll take the water bills, they'll take the payments, and then we'll get them inside to the proper people to be accounted for and answer the phone. So that's taken most of this week. I moved Riley Hatch, the Special Projects Coordinator, down to Fire Station 1. Put him in an office there. He's doing special projects out of Fire Station 1, and he's also taken over my daily duties at the fire station, taking care of the apparatus. He's responding, taking care of all the things that the volunteers need. I'm still doing the budget, the paperwork, and data entry. So that's the reorganization. I know a lot of people had some issues with it. I wanted you to know why that was being undertaken. And that's it, Mayor.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Council comments?
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It's great to see so many faces here. A lot of great information, and I think that's it for me. Thank you.
A few thank yous. First of all, thank you to Chief Pudney for all that he's doing, his commitment, his leadership, and thorough detail that you are providing to Beech Mountain. Thank you very much.
Still in that honeymoon.
I could comment on that, but I won't. And a thank you to Connie Pudney for the ladies' gift bags. Thank you, Connie. And Cyclone left, and I'd like to thank him for his refreshing invocations. I think those are nice. I'm glad to see those come back. And thank you to council for a productive meeting today. Thank you.
I'd like to take the credit, but I'll wait until later. Aaron, go ahead.
I'd like to thank everyone who's here today that's coming and supporting not only our town, but we see regular faces that are coming, and that really means a lot to me and all of us because we feel supported. I'd also like to thank Wendell and I'd like to thank Carl for everything that they've done, because sitting in these seats, it's easy when you think that you want to do it, but then when you get in here, it's not as easy to sit. And people do look at you differently when you drive on the road or you walk into a business because you are representative of the town. With that being said, for all the folks that do all the extra work and get unnoticed or feel that they're unappreciated, please know that you're such an integral part of this town and what make it so special and unique. And finally, I'd like to say, again, I'm so honored and humbled to sit in this seat and represent our town and move in a forward direction. I'm a servant leader, and we're for we the people. This is not and should never be a paid position. This is a position of someone that serves and a voice of all of our town. With that being said, I was told, my understanding is we get some kind of stipend that we would receive, and I'm not even sure when that happens, but I'd like to be the first one to give mine back to the town.
Would you want my account number?
I ran and made the conscious decision to run for this position to be representative of our town. And I've received lots of phone calls, even though I may be the new face on the mountain, from our townsfolk, and I absolutely love that. I love being able to sit and talk or have a conversation. If not in person, I'd be glad to meet with anyone about our needs and the directions that we need to go, because I consider myself your voice. So with that being said, and I don't know how to do this, Mayor, and I don't know how to do this but whatever stipend I would get, I'd like to give right back directly to our town budget, and I'd actually like to challenge anyone else on our council to do the same. We're not a very big mountain, but we're a special mountain, and every penny counts. And I can tell you, along with everyone else, how much I appreciate Mr. Pudney, our chief, for looking and looking out for every penny that we have on this mountain. So please, I don't know how we do that, but pencil me in to just turn it right back to the general fund or wherever the need happens to be.
I'll do it only if Chief stays as our town manager.
Yeah, there you go.
I've got 5 little comments. I'll be very quick. As everyone, Wider, Kelly, and Aaron, thank you for coming out. And 2, thank you to the committees and boards. It's kind of the engine to the town, so it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of hours, and that's super important. We have a community that's willing to be involved, volunteering like that, so thank you, and I appreciate that. 3rd would be Carl, thank you for your service and your time. It did not go unnoticed. Wendell, the same to you. And to Renee, if she's watching or if she reads the minutes, thank you for her commitment and her time. 4th would be thank you to Bob for hosting the first business meeting with the town. We had the resort, the club, restaurant owners, ski shops, lodging. And it was the first time that pretty much all of them have ever said that the town has approached them and how can we help you. And in regards, it was a really good turnout. So I think like Bob said, down the road I think we'll get really good ideas and we'll implement them. And then let's see. The last thing to end on a positive note, something the previous council did, which I'd like to mimic, is we would hold town hall meetings down at Buckeye. We would only have like 4 or 5 a year, but I think that's something we should revisit, and it's a good way for the community to connect with the council, not in so much an official meeting, but more of a relaxed setting, a lot of Q&A answers, and so it's something to look into, but that's all.
If any of the citizens have ideas for these town hall meetings, we certainly are interested in some of your concerns. We've had a couple in the last couple of years, which were very informative, and we had great turnouts. So if we didn't have too many this year because we actually ran out of good ideas, but if you have any idea that you'd like us as a council, as a public to bring up, one of the things that Bob brought up was the trash issue, construction materials and stuff like that, if you have concerns about that, if you want to talk about that in a public issue, we'd be glad to listen to that. So we like them. It's just we want your input on what ideas. As far as the boards are concerned, they are open to the public. So the public are invited to come to these boards and listen to what goes on. So if you are interested, like in what's happening in the TDA, or if you're interested in what's happening at the rec center, your input is important to them also. So, you know, if you have ideas and you can mention it to the board members at these meetings. That's what they're there for. They're there to represent you with different ideas. So it's not a closed session. You guys are all welcome. It's, you know, some like the rec centers at 8:30 in the morning. It's a little early, but, you know, we'll get, you know, we'll serve coffee maybe from Poppy's. But the rest of them are usually about 9 o'clock in the morning. They usually last an hour. So your input is important. So please come to these meetings. They're very informative. And the last thing I have, again, is I really enjoyed working with Carl and Wendell. I think it was a very interesting term, to say the least. And we're moving forward from here. And again, I enjoy my time here. Right now I'm dodging bullets, but no problem.
Thank you.
The only other thing is, anybody in the audience has anything they'd like to bring up as far as the agenda today's agenda? Frank, you're not allowed to speak.
I'd really like to say thanks to every one of you today. This is the kind of meeting that it's a pleasure to come to see that you guys and girls, ladies, really exemplified what I believe we should look forward to in the future. And that is getting the debates somewhat behind you and kind of have a clearer vision for what you're going to be doing and saying when you get out in the public domain out here. And this came across real well today. And I hope all the people watching on TV or whatever could hear you, because this was uplifting. I've been to a lot of council meetings, and most of the time when I walk out of the council meetings, I leave with my, geez, more of this same. This is an opportunity to build and grow on something good. So when you really feel like you got something you want to debate and all, do that, but do it in a manner that's professional, like you did today. And it will go over much better.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Judy Elliott, I just wanted to
Yeah,
know.
if you want to come up front or take the microphone so they can hear you on the camera, because otherwise.
Thanks. I wanted to know what the community can do as far as the water issue and putting pressure on our representatives. And if we could maybe have a community group that can write letters or make phone calls, emails, that kind of thing.
As far as the utility is concerned, I mean, any of that helps. You know, we have a recognized problem. And the council can definitely provide guidance on who and where, that any support that you can give in those letters and writings. But the largest thing is simply public outreach. Let your neighbors know, let your friends know, to be conservative of our resource. It's not something to be taken for granted, it's not to be wasted, and to just be mindful of its use.
So council, is there some way that going forward, we could have a committee?
Maybe after the workshop, we could discuss it more.
Yeah, we can make that one of our town hall meetings, where we can get the community together. That's a great idea.
Yes, ma'am.
And we can maybe come up with a plan, like you say, write our congressmen, our senators, and the governor, and whoever else we can write to, and try to put some pressure on it. Right now, I shower once a week, now I'm gonna start doing it twice a week.
I don't want to get to that.
We need to show over here.
Go to YMCA and take a shower.
I just hope everybody appreciates my humor, I mean, you know.
You had to go there. You had to go there.
Also, I want to thank Bob, great job.
Thank you.
I think it's really been refreshing to get all this data and information out there, so I really appreciate that. Any more comments from anybody? Meeting adjourned, thank you.